would have voted her least likely to ever serve a UU church, and yet there she is over at UU San Mateo. It's true, I've come a long way, but part of that journey has been a willingness to listen deeper. And I've discovered that there are values worth serving, no matter who has them. Love is at the center. You've been listening for quite a few minutes now, so I'm going to invite you to lean and take a couple deep breaths. Amends, Jews are granted a place for one more year in the book of life. Talk about consistent accountability. It's not one prayer and done, which is where I came from. Christianity does have Lent with its own journey calling for reflection and repentance and charity. And Islam engages the same goals, but not till February is a we suggested that the spiritual presence deep inside or somewhere inside ourselves, the voice still and small, is always inviting us to connect, and we pause for a moment of silence, reaching inside or outside toward that presence, toward that love, however we define it. And then we reflected that inviting others into conversation, especially those we don't understand, can bridge many divides. Conversation often falls short of deep listening. Now, we're not born with listening skills. We are born with a limited amount of tools to ask for what we need. The primary one is the cry. Babies quickly develop differentiated cries for different things to get what they want or need. And babies can hear as a way of beginning to form speech, but they don't really listen. Moving from hearing noise to comprehension and the ability to respond takes many months, first non-verbally, and then with action it forms slowly. Listening is a learned skill for all of us. The deeper kinds of listening, like listening to comprehend another person's experience or comprehending another person's feelings, most children learn this by being listened to. And that means we all learn it differently and to different degrees. Some of us had a parent who was a deep listener. Some of us didn't experience this kind of being listened to at home, but maybe received it from a teacher. If I ask who your favorite teacher is, those of you who name one, was probably someone who saw and heard you, who was a deep listener. Some of us had a pet who was the best and only listener in times of distress, and they're great because they never ask any questions. We may not be truly introduced to any kind of deep listening or to its closest number active listening until adulthood. In some work environments, they have to have workshops for it about active listening, and especially in conflict mediation, it's all about learning this. Or maybe we learn deep listening in marriage therapy. Some of us might never really learn it at all. And I think it's fair to say all of us struggle to some extent with this kind of skill.
And yet, there should be so much more of it, because the desire to be seen, to be heard, is something we all share. It's there at birth, and it stays with us to the end. So we know that being heard is a powerful thing, right? It's about the poem that Tricia just read, How to Listen by James Pearson. My paraphrase here. I'm asking you to be a place of unquestioned belonging. I'm asking you to be a home for my tears when I'm troubled, to honor my choices, to make room for all I am, even when I'm falling apart. We need each other in disasters, big and small, and in celebrations like that too. And it's a very real gift to be a home for the spirit, the core of wholeness of another person for a minute or for a lifetime. Individuals and communities can be those kinds of places. And I tell my seminary students that at the end of the day, the question every person carries is, am I loved? In order to help someone see themselves as lovable, we need to see them, to make them feel seen, and sometimes be willing to hear them, and sometimes to listen deeply until they feel heard. To be a deep listener is sometimes to listen beyond words, to be willing to immerse ourselves, not just in the verbiage of an interaction, but to feel with, to really be with what is. Sometimes just listening and being present is the most important healing act of all. Kathy Kinner, who lit the chalice today, is a deep listener. Many of our pastoral care team members are gifted in this way with an ability to listen, to hear. I wanted to do a congregational exercise here, but once I get you all talking, I know that we won't get out of the room on time. So I'm going to ask you to imagine a moment instead. Close your eyes for a second. And imagine you've returned from a trip somewhere, real or imagined. Somewhere you'd gone for the first time, near or far. And there you witnessed or saw or heard or experienced something breathtaking. It moved you. Keep your eyes closed, but when you have that image in your mind, that experience, raise your hand so I can see if we're keeping up with each other. You can put your hands down. Now imagine that you really want to share that experience and the feeling of it, the vastness of it, its impact on you. You want to tell someone, and it's always a little vulnerable to share ourselves, but you want to share this with someone else. And so you go to someone who you think will be excited to hear about your trip, and you start to share with your friend, and before you could really talk about how moved you were about the place you have been, they interrupt to say they were there once, and it is beautiful, and then they tell you their own story. This is not deep listening. Now imagine you tell someone about your trip. And after you've shared, they say, wow, that sounds really wonderful. I want to go there someday too. What else did you see? Now this is listening. Active listening perhaps, but not deep listening. Now imagine that you're talking about the trip to someone, and after you've shared, nods, smiles, reflects maybe some of a curious look. And then says, tell me more about how that felt, or what was it that made you feel that way? Now, we are in the deep listening zone. Are you with me? All right, you can all open your eyes if you haven't already. If we can recognize that there are those who are voting Republican because they do not feel seen or heard, that many people are voting Democrat because they do not feel seen or heard, that some are from other parties who aren't voting because they don't feel like it matters, they don't feel seen or heard, and some aren't going to vote at all because they don't feel seen or heard, maybe we have a hint that some of the solutions to many issues are a deeper kind of listening. Deeper listening is on the path toward better serving the community around us, who often don't feel seen or heard. We can do all our own anti-racism work, and then with true hearts we can proclaim that we are ready to serve. We might long to serve, but to serve is another step, because we cannot work independent of those who are acted upon. We can't decide to do things for. We must see that the answer ahead is doing things with, after deep listening to them, to those in the wider community. Deep listening is the path toward doing things with. And often that means community partnership. It means holding hands. Sometimes it means a little bit of discomfort. And now I'm starting the sermon for next month, so I have to stop. What would it mean to implement the idea of deep listening more often, even in simple ways? To look at the person begging for coins on the corner in the eye with just a nod, in a way that many will not. Even if we don't give them a dime, it is a gift of listening, of granting humanity, of saying, I see you. It's deeper listening than they normally get. It was great to hear the powwow report from our young people today, even though it's hard to get all the details out of them. I'm sure it was meaningful, and I'm sure they learned a lot. And how important it is to see and hear other voices, to understand the other side of Columbus Day, to understand there could be two true stories about completely different periods of time. If they listen deeply, they will be better for it. And they will be better leaders in the years to come. I'm thankful for this community, for congregational polity, because it encourages us to hear one another, to make an effort to hear one another. And it's a gift when we welcome the conversation. So, here's the homework for this week. Notice. Who around you needs to be seen or heard? And then, there are bonus points for truly listening, with or without words. Let it be so.